Dive into how drive and determination alongside the Startup State Initiative creates a successful entrepreneur. Welcome to the stage Jefferson Moss, Becki Wright, Leo Wright, and John Mogle.
We're back.
We're going to go round two on that one, so that was a little awkward. I felt like I was back in high school when I would be talking to my friends in the back of the class, and then my name would be called, and I'd try to hurry and figure out what I was doing wrong, and that was what it felt like when we had our names called. But I just want to say how grateful I am to be here. We have an incredible panel of entrepreneurs, and I am very grateful to be part of that ecosystem with the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity and the great things we're doing with Startup State. Utah is very lucky. We have an incredibly entrepreneurial ecosystem. It is just part of who we are. It goes back to our pioneer roots of trying to figure out how to solve big problems. And when we travel the world talking to other places, we often hear, how is Utah doing such a great job? What is it you're doing that's creating this incredible economy? And we always love to attribute it to these just very entrepreneurial people. So I'm excited today to talk a little bit about what Utah, some of the people from Utah are doing, and how we can apply those lessons to those of you in the audience that are maybe thinking about being an entrepreneur. So I want to just go down the line and introduce each of our panelists. If you could take a minute to introduce yourself and tell us what inspired you, talk about a little about your business, but what inspired you to be an entrepreneur?
Thanks, Jeff. We're excited to be here, and we're anxious, so anxious that we came a little early, but yeah, we're happy to be here with each of you. And I'm Becki Wright, founder and CEO of Proximity. Proximity is software powering democracy. We simplify and aggregate all the operational outreach and fundraising needs for political leaders and organizations so that they can make an impact. Basically, bringing in all of the tools you would need, making them proximate so that you can be more proximate to those you serve. And yeah, what inspired me? Well, entrepreneurship is really just doing, right? If you're an entrepreneur, you're a doer. And I grew up with 6 older brothers, hiking, biking, sports, you name it, everything outdoors that I could do. And really, it was at the tender age of about 8 that I created our neighborhood's first girls club, complete with our handprint signatures on our butcher paper mission and charter. You know, we got it done. And then later in life, when I was a freshman in college, I decided, you know, I'm going to learn how to play the harp at BYU. And I worked real hard, and I made it onto the BYU Harp Ensemble, started my own little business side gig where I would play the harp at weddings and receptions. And then later, as I was a mom, and I noticed in my kids' dual immersion elementary school the need for unity, and so I built a big play, and we're like, this will be fun, this will be fun. We built it to 15-team production team, a $30,000 operating budget. We had 200 kids show up. The 3rd year, we had to triple cast it. And what fuels me, what makes me want to be an entrepreneur is life, is doing, is seeing problems, seeing opportunities, and really wanting to solve for those opportunities. And Proximity was no different. It's kind of like death by 1,000 campaign cuts. You can either keep bleeding or build a bandage yourself, right, to solve this. And I was just so sick of the inefficiency. I was sick of using 6 different programs duct taped together to try to solve a solution for these candidates and these political leaders. And I was tired of all of the competition looking like your cousin built it in his basement about 20 years ago, you know? And I wanted to solve for that. I was really passionate about that. And so I built Proximity to solve that need and to level the playing field for political leaders, to try to simplify operations, simplify for people like you who might want to run for office, and help us really power democracy.
I'm Leo Wright. Almost 5 years ago, I started IME Automation. We're a robotic integration company down in Hurricane. I was the opposite of Becki. I did not want to start my own business. In fact, I many times told people I have no interest in starting my own business. And then I had a short stretch across a couple of years where several good friends of mine tried and tried and tried to get someone to bid in a robotic or an automation project for them for their Southern Utah factory. And the first three never found a bidder. The fourth one finally found a bidder, but the price he was bid was so egregious and offensive that it just really shook me. No, you can't be asked to pay that much. That is more than 4 times what would be a fair rate. There's got to be a better option. And he said, look, I'm considering taking it because we need it that badly and we're going to get that much value out of it. So I decided that if the need is that big, I was going to step up to the plate and take care of people.
Let's try that. There we go. My name's John Mogle. I am the founder and owner of Fierce Firearms and Fierce Products. In 2013, I saw an opportunity to take a risk and start my own business, which I did. But at an early age, I liked at Utah State, I was I liked to take risks. And as me and my wife were going through college there, we both had part-time jobs at Proform in the treadmill business. I was selling and she was in customer service, and we had our oldest son at the time, so it was very tight paying for our own way through college, but I always had that entrepreneurial spirit. I saw an opportunity. We had credit cards. I was like, I'm going to buy some used cars here and see if I can flip them. And started doing that, and you'd think I'd be the next Larry H. Miller, but that didn't happen. But I moved on to real estate and started fixing up homes and flipping that, all while having my daytime job. I just loved the excitement of making money and seeing opportunities and taking it. So in 2013, I had my daytime job, and I think entrepreneurship is just look for the opportunities. It sounds like that's what happened here, and that's what happened with me. I had the opportunity to become the North American distributor for Rosini USA, which is shotguns. We make target shotguns for sporting clays and also for hunting guns. And then I always, being in this great state of Utah with the outdoors, my passion has always been hunting and the outdoors. So I started Fierce Firearms, which is a bolt-action rifle hunting company, and both of them work hand in hand together, and we now sell guns to some of the great names in Utah like Shields, Cabela's, Sportsman's Warehouse, and took that risk, saw the opportunity, and it's been great so far.
Yeah, thank you, and very inspiring. And we love to hear these entrepreneurial stories, the successes that we have, but we also know there's challenges along the way. As a former entrepreneur myself who bootstrapped a company, there's times when you don't know if you're going to make it to the next pay period or if you're going to be able to continue to pay the bills. But over time and perseverance, I think you've all been very successful. But can you talk about maybe an obstacle or a challenge along the way and how you work through that challenge to continue building your companies?
Should we start?
Yeah, just go on.
Well, the definition of entrepreneurship is obstacles, and like daily obstacles. There's a very kind of famous comic strip that says the day in the life of a founder, and every single screen it says in more colorful language than I will repeat here, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, and then eventually, woohoo, and then oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. And that really is, kind of the definition of startup world, startup life when you're first starting here. But that's actually what makes entrepreneurship so exciting, is recognizing that there are a mountain of opportunities, obstacles that can be turned into opportunities. And that if you're willing to step up and say, I haven't ever been here before, I don't quite know what's next, but I'm willing to figure it out, that's really what entrepreneurship is. And proximity was actually founded, he's talking about obstacles and failures. Proximity was actually founded from a failure. So I ran for office in 2015, and I lost by 11 votes. 11 votes. Every vote counts, people, I promise. And when that happened, I realized my Google Sheets and my paper maps just didn't cut it. And I started thinking, what could be better? And then over the past decade of working as a political consultant, campaign manager, strategist, I started seeing time and time again these same problems in solutions that really were not solving the problem. And so proximity was born out of failure. It was born out of this frustration. But each and every day, you're up against things. And as you keep going as an entrepreneur, the goal is really to be really comfortable being uncomfortable. If you get used to comfort and you're not stretching yourself, that's when your growth stops. So as a founder and as an entrepreneur, feeling a little bit of uncertainty and having a high risk tolerance allows you to grow and stretch and innovate and create solutions that you didn't even know were possible. And as you surround yourself by people who have that same mindset, together it's magic.
I think for us, maybe I've got the answer that Jefferson's wanting and then a little bit of a side answer. So we have had a problem for the last 4 years that's one that I could not have anticipated. Our growth has been so hardcore and heavy that every time I turn around, we've got an engineering shortage. Every time I turn around, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to bring on another engineer, where I'm going to find the money, where I'm going to find the talent, where I'm going to get somebody to come and join the team from, and how I'm going to make sure that that doesn't disrupt what we already have going on. So, I mean, that's one of the traditional things that a lot of guys may experience. We've dealt with it by, it didn't happen at first, but after I started seeing this pattern, I kind of changed my mentality. And instead of thinking of hiring as something I do when the need is there, I think of it as something that we're always at least partially looking at, so that we can at least somewhat stay ahead of the curve. The other thing that comes up for us that maybe isn't the case for everybody is our whole business is about inventing things and innovating and solving people's problems. And so every day I go to work and somebody's grabbing me saying, hey, you know, this robot system over here, we're having this problem and we don't know how to solve it. And sometimes it's a matter of a little bit of patience, and sometimes it's a matter of gathering 2 or 3 or 4 engineers. Sometimes it's a matter of beating our heads on the wall until we finally find something that'll work.
I think for me it's been just vertically integrating. When I first started the business, made guns in the garage. Then I started getting them made in Canada, and then decided, hey, it was time to make them in Utah right here. And so that was a big challenge, trying to find the talent, find engineers, we had to buy a bunch of CNC equipment, figure out how to run them. So that was very challenging for us, just basically going from a distributor to a manufacturer. That was a big step, and something challenges us every day when you go into manufacturing. But it's a great challenge, and I love it, and we've got a good team that helps solve problems every day to try and figure it out.
Well, I appreciate that, and I also agree that the workforce issue is sometimes we're a victim of our own success, where we're having an incredible economy, and so I appreciate that there's a lot of efforts, the governor, the legislature, school board, higher ed, working through some of those ideas and how do we get more engineers and things. So I appreciate that coming up. Maybe talk a little bit about being in Utah as an entrepreneur, just some of the things that you've seen as an entrepreneur relative to the state, things that we are doing well, maybe things that we can work on.
Well, we're the startup state, right? We have that name, and it fits us well. Because as I've traveled around the country, been to different conferences, different states, looked at how regulation is, we have a very business-friendly regulatory environment here in Utah, and leaders who want to see business succeed. It was already mentioned on this stage earlier, we also have one of the most diverse economies in the nation and one of the fastest growing economies, the fastest growing economy just in recent years. That comes with a lot of opportunities, and it comes with a lot of challenges. We have to be constantly thinking about the future, and as entrepreneurs that's what we do, right? We think about what can we do now, what can we do to solve the problems of the future. And I think it's been a huge boon for me and for Proximity to be here in Utah. I remember even just having an experience in another state looking at they hadn't invested in infrastructure, they hadn't invested in networking and the close proximity of bringing people together to try to encourage innovation. And so the whole culture of Utah and the decisions that were made years ago are having a huge effect on our ability to continue to grow and build proximity. We're in 25 states and Canada now, and we're continuing to grow, but I'm so proud that our headquarters are here in Utah.
And unlike Becki, I don't even honestly know all the differences. My entire career has been here in Utah, but I can tell you some of the things that we have benefited from. So first of all, when we started the company, we were the only company doing what we do in the entire geographic region. So if you drew a box south of Provo, west of Colorado, north of Phoenix, and east of California, we were the only company doing what we were doing. It's one of the reasons why we've succeeded. It turns out there's also a lot of other young companies who were needing what we have, and we're struggling to find it from the bigger companies outside of that region. The other thing that happened that I didn't see coming, I couldn't have possibly known about, is we had a lot of leaders, and I don't claim to know how all the organizational structures work, but I have had a lot of different government people and organizations that are government sponsored that have reached out to me, and sometimes through telling me about different resources, sometimes through networking opportunities, we have been able to overcome problems that I would have struggled with more. So we've had conversations with some of the local government. Darren Prince has called me more times than I can keep track of. I know GOEO at Colette Cox has had a number of conversations and has led different business my way and has told us about different programs going on. I've had Steve Black and Jared Nelson from Impact Utah help out a number of times, and all of those were just an unexpected resources that I couldn't have imagined would be a part of it.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the guys that we work with too. Jared and Eric and those guys were a big help and continue to be a big help to our company. Being in Utah is, that's our passion, the outdoors, hunting. I don't know that I'd be in this business if I grew up somewhere else. I don't think I'd have the passion for the outdoors and hunting and fishing and all those different things. So Utah is a big part of why my company exists, and it's great to see. It's hunting season right now, so it's great to see that carries over to our employees. People are excited, they're passionate about their job and what it means to the core of hunting. But Utah's been great. Like you just mentioned, there's been a lot of programs. We actually received the modernization grant, the manufacturing modernization grant that helped us a lot as far as buying machinery and being able to do what we're doing now. And so, the programs and different things that the state offers are fantastic for new startups, and it just feels like they just want to help you. And that's been comforting and been a big help for our company. So, yeah, we love Utah.
Love it. Maybe one more question. Just as we probably have a number of entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, future entrepreneurs in the audience. Just any advice, having been through what you've gone through, for somebody that's thinking about doing this for the first time?
Someone once asked me, what do you wish you knew before doing this? Similar question. And I don't know if you're familiar with Liz Wiseman. She's a researcher and executive coach, and she gave an amazing speech at BYU that's called The Power of Not Knowing. And if you have time, I'd encourage you to go look it up. That is kind of the definition of an entrepreneur. The power of not knowing. If you're thinking about doing something, there's actually a lot that you can give and a lot of advantageous perspective that you can bring to the workforce, to your problem, by not having experienced this. So don't think that you have to know exactly what's happening or what's going to be next. I would encourage you to recognize there's some superpower there in that humility. And the second thing I would say as well is that when you're building, there's been studies that have been shown that some of the best forecasters, they call them super forecasters, people who can really predict the future, that can do a really good job of being accurate. These super forecasters have a lot in common in that they are able to iterate, make small changes little by little, and get closer to what the future actually will be. So if you're thinking about doing something, how could you iterate today? How could you do something and test it, take it to market in a way, and see what kind of feedback you get? Once you get that feedback, iterate, change just a little bit, adjust, see what else you can do to make the solution better. And as you do that, you'll always be ahead of the curve. You'll always be, finding solutions for the future, and you'll always be someone that can have something to give.
Well, I definitely started off on the wrong path. As I decided that we were going to go and do this, I reached out to all of the guys I know in the industry. I was kind of in an adjacent industry, and because of that, I had a whole bunch of good contacts in the industry. And leading up to the starting of IME, I reached out to dozens of them, had long conversations with them. How do integrators handle this? How do they do this? What's the best practice for this? And as we started, I tried to implement all of them. And for the first 6-9 months, we struggled, we floundered, we couldn't get traction, we couldn't get momentum. Was constantly banging my head on the desk, wondering, it's working over here, it's working over here, I can tell there's a desperate need here, what's the problem? Finally, I had the wherewithal to say, hey, this stuff is not working. I'm going to try something a little different. And we spent the next 6 to 9 months just experimenting with a wide variety of things. And we very quickly figured out that doing everything the same way as everybody else, when they have a track record and they have decades of history that people can look at, and I have none of that, doesn't help us stand out. It makes us look like the worst option. And as we started doing things differently, and as we started embracing the fact that we were different from everybody else, that's when the momentum really started to grow. That's when I went from wondering if this was going to work out, wondering if I was going to have to call my old employer back and see if they were willing to hire me back, to wondering where I was going to find enough engineers.
My advice would be to people thinking about being entrepreneurs is, one, have a good partner. If my wife didn't have a great job and I saw that security, I don't know that I'd have taken the jump and the risk to go do what I was going to do, so that helped out a bunch. So, but when you see a need and you see a problem, kind of like the question is asked, try and find the opportunity. If you find that opportunity or a way to solve that problem, you might be onto something, and it might be worth taking that risk. But the other thing I would say, it's not easy. You are going to have to work your ass off to be successful, and be willing to work 12 to 14 hours a day if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, because that's what it takes. So if you're not that type of person and not willing to put in that work, you might want to rethink that. And yeah, that'd be my advice, is that right there.
That's very good advice. All three of you, thank you. And Utah, again, is where we are today because these incredible entrepreneurs, those who are willing to take the risk, that jump out, work really hard, and solve big problems. And we are so grateful. So can we give a round of applause to this amazing panel? Thank you.